Hey everyone, just wanted to take a quick look at one of our newest designs out. It's called Double Exposure, and just wanted to do a quick walkthrough to show kind of how to easily drop your subjects in and kind of get this double exposure effect. So this is how the template's going to load up. I've added a little instructional layer in here, and this is just to give kind of a key to the color coding here. So for instance, the green layers here, anywhere where it's marked green, that's going to be a color changing layer, so that's going to be a layer that affects the overall color of the image. The blue layer here, that's going to be your group where you're going to drop in your background elements, and your red group here is going to be where your subjects go. So this is just a little key to explain what the color coding is over here. So I'm going to go ahead and disable this layer, and this is what you're going to see when you bring the template up and take a look at it here with that layer off. So the first thing we want to look at is where to drop the subject in. So we go down to our red group right here. So place subject in this group. We're going to expand the group. And then I'm going to come drag a subject in and drop in here. So we're going to come over, grab our subject, drag her over. Let's drop her right in. Then I'm going to do a resize here. So Command or Control T. And I'm just going to kind of bring her up to a size that I like the look of here. And you can see right away it's already giving us this double exposure effect with the way that the template is set up. We're going to go ahead and click apply here, but there's a couple areas we want to tweak here, specifically around the face. If I want to bring a little more detail back in the face, because depending on the background is going to depend on how this double exposure effect kind of works here. So for instance, for this default background that's loaded up, what we need to do is we need to come up here to our background exposure group, so the blue group. And you can see we have a mask on this group. So what we want to do is we want to grab the brush tool. We want to make sure the foreground color is set to black. And then with a low flow on the brush, we can just paint in wherever we want to bring detail back out in our subject. So we can kind of bring that contrast back. And what we're effectively doing is painting away the background elements. And so you could determine how much or how little you wanted that to fade just by how you use your brush here at this point. So if you wanted like all of the head to come back in, we could very easily do that just by brushing that in. So very easy to kind of blend your subject in. Okay, so that's kind of step one, is bringing your subject. The other thing that this will allow us to do, there are a few backgrounds preloaded in here. So you can see as we turn these off and on, we do have a few options in here to get you started, but you can drop in custom backgrounds. So what we'd want to do is just, with this group expanded, is just disable all of our current backgrounds. And let's come over here, we can grab a new one. And let's drag this one over here into our document. And we'll go ahead and line it up. And we can play with the size and things like that. I do recommend it kind of expands to the edge of the canvas. But you could kind of determine here if you wanted some of that break to come across the face or below the face, or I have found that having some tree lines with some open sky creates some really cool effects on this double exposure effect. So that's maybe something to look for there. Let's go ahead and click apply here. We're going to see what this looks like. What we want to do is now we want to change this to a blending mode of screen. Alright, so once we hit that screen, that's where we're going to see that double exposure effect start to happen. You could always play with your overall opacity on the group and things. And you're going to notice one of the things I want to point out here, if you're dropping in a sky that's white or very close to white, you're going to see, because of how the blending mode and things set, that's going to cause your other elements to disappear when it's white. So a couple of things that we can do is, one, we could lower the opacity, and what you can see gives you kind of a double exposure, but it brings some of those text elements and things back that are in there. The other thing that we could do, let's bring this back up, is you could do, say, a levels adjustment on this layer. So Command or Control L, and you could bring this white point down. So you're kind of leaving everything else, basically the same, but just dropping the white point down so that it's no longer white, but it becomes more of a gray. And so with that gray, a lot of those elements begin to come back as well. And then from there you could always resize and play with your orientation and things to get just the effect that you want there. So maybe something kind of like that. Yeah, like that. Your text layers in here, those are all just normal text. So you could come in here and you could type this just like you would normal text. So let's change this maybe to soccer instead of senior. We'll apply that. Then it's a resize. Command or Control T. You could bring that right down to any size that you like. Of course, you could change the font, change the text. All of that should be easily editable. You'll also notice in the background here we have a this optional background block, so that just turns that stripe on and off across the back of the image. That's there because I think it looks kind of cool on some images. On others, I really like just the plain look here. So again, that's there for you to play around with. One of the other things that you could do too, if we come down to our background layer, this is just a solid color fill layer, so we're going to double click on this. As you bring this whole background down to like say a light shade of gray, you're going to see that your whole background image will start to display. So it's a real easy way to just change the lookup overall depending on how much of that double exposure you want to show through the rest of the image. I really like the white look, so I'm going to bring this back up to white. And then at the top here, there's a simple color grading overlay that gives some contrast and things, but then you're going to see this color cast overlay. So that's what's giving the whole image this same tint. And this is just a simple hue saturation adjustment layer. So if we wanted this to be red, we could pull this down to red. We could change, how saturated of a red that is. Be careful not to drop your lightness too much because it does flatten out things a little bit weird. So I'd recommend leaving this around 0 or slightly above on the lightness scale. The other thing we could do is we could actually turn this layer off, and you're going to see some of the colors start to come through from the background. So you can create some interesting effects there by keeping some black and white type of elements in here and mixing some color into the background. Of course, if you wanted to take the color out of the background, you could always convert your background to black and white. So there's several different options in here to create some different looks and things. Hopefully you'll find that it is fairly simple to use. Again, the key is just masking your subject off to get the details back where you want. But I hope that you have a lot of fun with this one. More importantly, I hope that you get a lot of sales with this one.